All of which returns us to the big American Psych Convention in Hawaii. Because in contemplating what the hell might be done about it, Psychiatry's leading lights stage a special closed-door workshop. It's entitled The War, Understanding and Confronting Scientology's Efforts to Destroy Psychiatry. And should you wonder what was actually discussed, well, the fact is, you're living it right now. Meaning they began that conference by airing a pirated copy of this event from an earlier IES anniversary. After which, the room falls silent with slack-jawed horror, while the psych workshop leader could only mutter, "Not just fun and games." And of course, he's right, to a degree. But the fact is, from here on out, we go for the jugular, as in the whole foundation of modern psychiatric thinking, as in the whole modus operandi of their delivery system, as in the whole reasoning behind a so-called science devoid of any scientific basis and amounting to the greatest sham ever perpetrated on the human race, as in this. As a first word on what this documentary represents, it is not a commentary on psychiatry's diagnostic and statistical manual. It is the DSM. All 943 pages of cockamamie ailments literally voted into existence and now dissected from every conceivable angle to reveal the most elaborate pseudoscientific scam in history. Included therein is the entire trail of psychiatric diagnosis, beginning with a Nazi who dreamed up the first three behavioral disorders and continuing with the free-for-all smorgasbord of 374 today. Also included is the whole myth of brain chemistry and the fact psychs readily admit they can't define the term mental disorder. There's more again on the 42,000 deaths from psych drugs, and if patients shy away from treatment, they've even got a diagnosis to cover that one. There's still more on how 56% of those deciding what goes into the DSM are on the take from pharmaceuticals, and how psychs in turn take healthcare systems to the cleaners with obscene profit margins, literally twice the cost of real medical treatment. There's another chapter entirely on psychiatric plans to determine who's fit to raise children and who's not, and still another on treating kids. As a matter of fact, there's now even a DSM edition exclusively devoted to toddlers, suggestively entitled Diagnostic Classification 0 to 3, meaning newborns to 3-year-olds. Then again, there's the chapter on upcoming disorders, including psychosis risk syndrome, meaning diseases kids might develop for which they're given preventative drugs. While to cap it, viewers are directed to CCHR for viable solutions and workable answers, whereupon this hour-and-a-half journey through psychiatry's looking glass world is complete, and all is indeed revealed. So there you have it, psychiatry's deadliest scam revealed. And with that, we not only come to the final word on psychiatry, we also come to the first of this year's Freedom Medal winners. It's a tradition intrinsic to every IES anniversary, and especially emblematic of our stature this evening. For what you're about to see is not a story of a war with psychiatry, it's about a fight for the fate of a people. And so it is I give you our first IES Freedom Medal winners for 2011.
If this looks like the face of new Russia, look again. Because you'll still hear whispers of dissidents who vanished for towing the wrong party line. And you'll still see Soviet-style asylums, where a diagnosis is as good as a death sentence. Yet eradicating human rights abuses and bringing psychs under the law are IAS Freedom Medal winners for 2011, Asghar Ishkildin and Tatyana Molchikova. Tatyana found Scientology in 1999, while by 2003, she was the engine behind a Russian psych-busting machine. Asghar too discovered Scientology in 1999. And by 2006, he was serving as CCHR Executive Director.
При всех признаках якобы обновленной России в ней продолжают широко практиковать психиатрические способы контроля людей, применявшиеся еще во времена коммунизма.
За блестящим фасадом, несомненно, продолжались психиатрические преступления. И наша задача была в том, чтобы найти их и придать огласке.
They called them psychoneurological asylums, and behind their walls lie the secrets of Russian psychiatry. So to discover what lay within those fortresses, Asghar and Tatyana began disseminating psych abuse literature, literally blanketing neighborhoods surrounding the asylums, hoping someone would step forward. Finally, one day a woman named Oksana appeared at the door. She'd been a patient at asylum number 5. She said doctors had forced her to undergo sterilization surgery 3 years earlier. And she said she wasn't the only one. That's when Asghar and Tatyana discovered the brutal truth. Patients with children were legally entitled to in-house apartments, and sterilization was all about psychs cutting operating costs. With evidence in hand, CCHR secured credentials from Moscow's Human Rights Commissioner, whereupon they were next descending on asylum number 5. Interviews were held in private and on camera. No less than 10 told the same story. Forced sterilization, consented to under severe duress. Documenting abuses chapter and verse, Asghar and Tatyana authored their own dossier, a white paper, forwarded to commissioners in all 90 regions of Russia. At which point the raids began, exposing pandemic sterilization extending well beyond Asylum 5, and for which psychs were soon feeling the weight of the Russian state. In Perm, where the head of the Ozersky Asylum was tried, convicted, and summarily dismissed. Another again in Volgograd, same modus operandi, same pattern. Whereupon forced sterilization was a secret no more, as Russian dailies were smeared with banner headlines. The Novaya Gazeta, the Moscow Times, Pravda, and over again in regional press across every state, until, at last, the horror had finally been exposed to all of Russia and outlawed forever.
Разоблачение психиатрических преступлений поставило психиатров в такую ситуацию, когда мы можем заставить их увидеть собственные преступления, наказуемые с позиции закона.
Specifically, forced sterilization was only one atrocity in a greater catalog of horrors known as punitive psychiatry. It was a system where anyone could be involuntarily committed, declared incompetent, and lose all rights under the law. And with CCHR on the map, evidence was flooding in from abused patients and their families all over Russia. As a first decisive step, it was the strategic placement of a traveling exhibit, where Tatiana hosted reps from the Chamber of Lawyers and federal parliament, all to prepare the ground for what was to come. Namely, new statutes drafted by Asgar to guarantee fair hearings and bring commitment procedures under the law. And all of it forwarded to members of parliament, the Ministry of Justice, and the Kremlin itself. At which point, Tatiana and Asgar took it right to the people with town hall meetings on punitive psychiatry, and where federal Duma staff were next joining the CCHR chorus from the podium. Then came Tatiana on Moscow TV, exposing psychiatry's abuse of the elderly to seize their property. And finally, television placement and replay of an industry of death. And with every news story generating yet another revelation, it finally reached critical mass at the highest realms of Russian power. April 6, 2011, signed into law by the president himself. The abolishment of Cold War punitive psychiatry.
Психиатров прижали к стенке. Соответственно, они вынуждены перестраиваться и предлагать миру новую психиатрию. А нам предстояло сорвать этот план.
That plan was the new psych blueprint for what they dubbed the Psychiatric Reformation. Specifically, they'd release 750,000 mental patients, with one catch. They'd continue to treat them as outpatients by drugging them with Western psychopharmaceuticals. Then again, in so doing, they'd line their pockets with 7.5 billion rubles from public coffers. But Asgar and Tatiana had a reformation plan of their own. It began with the unleashing of 1,000 Making a Killing DVDs across the Russian healthcare system and exposing the psychopharmaceutical scam. But what amounted to the firing pin was a special documentary package to the Federal Anti-Monopoly Service. And it triggered a chain reaction. It broke early on a summer morning, with agents storming Moscow offices of every Western pharmaceutical manufacturer. Swiss drug maker Novartis, Israeli pharmaceutical Teva, and sparking further investigations into Novo Nordisk, Valenta, Akrikin, and Eli Lilly. What they discovered were under-the-table bribes to regulators, kickbacks to doctors to generate prescriptions, and unconscionable profit margins on real medicine. At which point, it was the entire Russian government damning Western pharmaceuticals, freezing foreign drug prices, outlawing pharmaceutical ads from magazines and airwaves, until, having cut Western pharmaceutical infusion, Russia's psychiatric reformation was wiped out before it even began. Two courageous CCHR champions set out to expose the horror of psych abuse, and in so doing, not only derailed the new psychiatry, but protected the civil rights of every Russian citizen. IAS Freedom Medal winners for 2011, Oscar Ishkildin and Tatiana Molchikova.